Welcome to the Get Real podcast. I'm Austin, your host, and today we're going to be talking about Derrick Rose. More specifically, the possibility that Derrick Rose, despite all the trauma, all the heartbreak, all the issues that he's dealt with since his horrible knee injuries, the likelihood of him getting the Sixth Man of the Year award. Now let's start off with the brief history for a little bit about Derrick Rose. His story, when you talk about it, is almost something out of just a really kind of cliche sports movie that you kind of roll your eyes at. But it's crazy. He grew up in Chicago, on the streets of Chicago. He killed it in college basketball, then eventually became the number one prospect in the country, got picked. The Chicago Bulls picked him, the number one overall pick. So the kid that grew up in his hometown, his home city, gets picked by the local sports team. It's something that doesn't happen very often, and the fact that it happened for him was incredible. Now, what happened after that makes the story just that crazy. Obviously he's a number one overall pick, so he's there for a reason. It's because he's talented, it's because he's special. People see things in him. But no one saw him becoming the youngest MVP in NBA history, which is what he ended up being. He took the heart of Chicago by storm, took him to the playoffs, had head-to-head matches against LeBron, faced kind of adversity early with injuries to him and other players, but he still fought through it. It just became a story that was just huge. No one really saw a point guard this athletic in a very long time. He got to the basket at will, just dunking, and his athleticism was almost unprecedented. I mean, the only one you can really compare it to right now, at least in a point guard's body, is a guy like Russell Westbrook. But then shortly afterwards, we all know the story, we all know what happened, tearing the ACL, tearing and facing, I think it's MCL as well, and different knees, just one injury after another. He missed season after season, time after time, game after game. And it seemed like it took him forever to get back on the court. And when he did, you could tell he wasn't the same guy. Something robbed him of that elite athleticism, and he was never the same guy. His tenure in Chicago ended unspectacularly. He signed with the New York Knicks. Nothing special there either. And then eventually, he just kind of stopped showing up to a game or two. Like, this happened. He just didn't show up. He didn't let anybody know. He just missed the game. And obviously ownership and management were furious with him. But people are thinking, here it is. It's going to be another sad story, another Greg Odom, except without the accolades, another what-if scenario. And that's what it became. He became another what if he stayed healthy? What if this happened? Could he have been the guy that took the league by storm and became the best player for years on end? Nobody would ever know. So, New York was a bust. I mean, he averaged some decent points, but he just wasn't the same guy. He got injured a few times. He never became close back to that MVP talent that we were so used to seeing. And then he ended up being on the Cavaliers with LeBron, signed to a low contract. I mean, nobody signed him when he became a free agent. No one was looking to sign him. Cleveland was kind of desperate for a point guard because they just traded Kyrie Irving and Isaiah Thomas. Despite getting Isaiah Thomas, they knew he was still injured. They knew it was going to take a while to bring him back. So they signed him, and nothing came to fruition. That was a big opportunity to get almost as many minutes as he could have wanted by joining a team that desperately needed him at their position for a point guard, and nothing happened. He just shot very poorly. He couldn't defend. He couldn't shoot in a league that was increasingly becoming a three-point shooters league, to where you have to be at least average from three or you're damn near unplayable. And it's never happened. And so eventually he was traded they just got rid of him to the Utah Jazz. They traded him and Jay Crowder, I believe, for Rodney Hood. Utah just cut him straight out. So he went from being the MVP of his home city, his hometown, his home team, the Chicago Bulls, being on top of the world, and then got injured, then was kind of just a starter, then was a bad starter, got injured some more, was kind of labeled as a head case, that he couldn't fit into the shoot-first three-point league. could even be a bench player for a point guard star Cavaliers team, could even come off the bench. He was just not worth a damn. Then being cut by the Utah Jazz. Utah's a fine team, don't get me wrong. They're a fine team now, but you got cut by Utah, and you're a former MVP. That's got to be extremely damaging to the ego. And then he got signed by the Timberwolves because Tom Thibodeau, we all know that he likes filling up his Timberwolves. So it's former Bulls player, Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson, Derrick Rose, now Luol Deng. We kind of rolled our eyes when we saw it. We thought, okay, what the hell is this guy thinking? You have Jeff Teague, you have Tyrus Jones, who you need to give more minutes to. Why the hell are you signing this guy who can't stay on the court? You really can't shoot. You can't defend. What are you doing? What are you wasting your time for? And so that was fans, I even saw fans of the Timberwolves were especially not happy about this. Was very mediocre last season, Derrick Rose was. And then this season happened. He started becoming more efficient. I think that's the biggest thing people saw, but they didn't want to really believe it. I certainly didn't buy into it, looking at it. He started being able to shoot a little bit better. He gave more attempts. He shot the mid-range actually pretty efficiently and the three-point shot. Okay, there might be something here. And then, as all of you know by now, dropping 50 points against the Utah Jazz. And let's point this out first. Defensively, Utah's one of the best in the game. Derek Favors, a plus defender. Rudy Gobert, Defensive Player of the Year. Really, he's the Stifle Tower, very talented. Donovan Mitchell, very solid defender. And Ricky Rubio, who makes up for his lack of a jump shot with great passing and defense. And then they also have Jay Crowder. So you have very good defenders at pretty much every position on that team. That's just a good team. They're a good playoff team that's going to be third or fourth in the West. They're going to be very solid. So for him to drop 50 points, I think he hit 3 or 4 three-pointers. He was nailing threes, nailing the mid-range, getting on almost to the basket at will. He wasn't doing crazy dunks like he was in a dunk contest, but these reverse layups, these very tactical, smart pump fakes and going under the basket for a reverse layup, very smart with his movements, not throwing the ball away or making bad choices. He knew what he was doing, and he just went off. And so after that game, I said, damn, how is he doing this season? And if you look at his numbers, even though it's still very early in the season, you look at those numbers, 18 points per game, about almost 45% from the field, about 35-ish from three-point land. That 35% from three is a big deal. If that can be maintained, those are basically his season averages for his whole career. So then the question that came up. They asked him, if you can't be an MVP and you come off the bench, what do you want to do? He said, well, I want to get that Sixth Man of the Year award. I want to get that. And that hasn't happened since, I believe, Bill Walton. He was really hurt after his MVP award, never became the same guy, but then he came off the bench, won Sixth Man of the Year. I think he's the only player, Bill Walton, to win an MVP and also Sixth Man of the Year award. So if Derrick Rose can average this, if he can average 18, 5 and 3, 5 rebounds, 2 or 3 assists, 45% from the 2, 35% from the 3, while also playing at least average on defense, he has a real shot at it. I mean, you always have your guys like Lou Williams and then Fred VanVleet or other guys from Toronto off the bench. You always have those guys in the mix, but imagine this. Derrick Rose was in danger. He was almost at the point to where you're going to say, wow, Derrick Rose is going to be the first MVP, the guy to win MVP, and not be in the Hall of Fame. I can't think of another player who won the MVP that just was a bust from there on out, will not be in the Hall of Fame. Pretty much every MVP player that's won it is in the Hall of Fame. That's not something you want to go down for. And so if he only becomes a bench player who gets you 15, 18, maybe 20 points per game off the bench, that will be a big success not only for him, for his career. It will make all the tragedy, all the heartbreak, all the injuries as he went through, it won't make that so unbearable. And who knows, I mean, if if some team signs him to a bigger contract down the line and thinks that he's worth it, maybe he can win a title down the line with a team that needs him. Who knows? But at the very least, everyone can agree this is a story that just, how could you not be happy seeing a guy like this go through, everybody wrote him off. I wrote him off, you wrote him off, everybody did. Nobody saw him having a good season. Everybody thought he's one step away from playing in China. But for him to step it up, to not just persevere through everything, because he's been told by everybody, been turned by everybody. Nobody wanted him on their team, and now he's finally getting to a rhythm, and you can only hope that this will continue. But either way, you saw how emotional he was after that game, how his teammates were just going crazy for him. You knew that it showed that going through all the problems that he did, for him to get to this point right now, to be on a team to where he could contribute night in, night out, and actually be an effective player, bench player or starter, it means a lot to him. He's kind of gotten over himself. He's gotten over that he's not really a starter anymore. He's gotten over that he's an MVP, not an MVP player anymore. And he's just happy to play the game of basketball. And how can you not respect and love that? So what do you guys think? Do you think Derrick Rose has a shot at that Sixth Man of the Year award? Or do you think this is just a flash in the pan and we'll never see him before like this from here on out? Let me know what you guys think. As always, this is the Get Real Podcast. Thanks for listening.